I'm Scott Goldman, and this is the Grammy Museum's Programs at Home. Our guests today are a singer-songwriter and her co-writer, collaborator, producer, who just happens to be her brother. Together, they make genre-blurring, compelling, and wildly popular music. Their work spawned the biggest North American debut by any artist in the last decade, which resulted in a sweep of the major categories at the 2020 Grammy Awards. They're here today following the release earlier this year of the song they wrote for the new James Bond film, as well as more recent releases, My Future and What They'll Say About Us. Billie Eilish and Finneas, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us. How are you, Scott?
I'm doing great. I seem to start all of these conversations these days talking about quarantine because everybody experiences it a little bit differently. And Billie, I know you've talked a little bit about kind of social isolation and how the effect it's having on you. How are you doing these days?
Same old. It's quite a Groundhog Day feeling, but I'm trying to. We're finding ways to make the routine of it more fun and keeping it safe and trying to be grateful for everything. It's at this point it's a little much because I'm definitely ready. I've been ready for a while to get my life back, but I also care about my safety and the people around me safety. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but right now we're just making music and swimming in our pools.
I've joked that if the quarantine were only 8 weeks long, it would have been perfect.
Yeah.
If it were 8 weeks start to finish, we're wow, everything's shut down, just chill out, read some books, watch some TV shows. And then it was all right, everything's fine again. We all would have been that was such a nice little reset. And
yeah, literally.
Instead, it's that was, by the end of that 8 weeks.
No, the first 2 weeks, I was this is so amazing. We'll have 2 weeks off. It's nice. We'll go right back out on tour. Everything will be back to normal. We'll just have had a nice 2-week gap and rest. And then, oh, that was wrong.
Not so much. Hey, Finneas, I read that you had recently produced a track via Zoom with Ben Platt. And I'm wondering, what's that experience like working remotely?
Well, for me, it presents different challenges than working with somebody. But in the case of producing specifically the Ben Platt song, I was sent a guide track piano and then his lead vocal. And then kind of told would you be willing to build a production around this? And it was, in many ways really fun for me. The style of music that he makes sort of lends itself to I play a little bit of everything. So I got to play acoustic guitar and electric bass and electric guitar and piano and drums and organs. And, I got to really be a one man. I was like Dick Van Dyke from Mary Poppins. And, that's the way my home is set up. And then it was basically just notes, it was how do you feel about this? And him giving feedback and going back and forth. It's much harder, I've found, to actually write a song on a Zoom call because so much of a writing session is sitting there playing the chord progression and the other person singing over it. And the lag on Zoom just makes it virtually impossible. So you end up having to do you'd have to record a loop of it, send it to the person as a voice memo, and then they play it on their phone and they sing to it. And you kind of sit over in your other thing on mute. And then you go that sounds great. It's much more challenging. So I feel very lucky that we're working together in person still.
Billie, have you done any of this remote stuff? Any remotely collaborating or even, live stream sort of stuff?
It's really, no, I haven't. I've done a few live stream performances or, I did one at towards the beginning of quarantine, but nah, the virtual working sounds like pure hell to me. So, also, it's just, I'm so grateful that we're so close that we've been quarantining since the beginning together. we obviously, like, Phineas lives here with his girlfriend Claudia, and then sometimes I'm with, like, my parents at their house. But it's what's great is, like, it's just so nice to have
a family
that's, you know, you can actually see.
And we lucked
you know?
out.
But because I'm not seeing nobody else. Yeah. So I haven't hugged my best friends in what is it, like 6 months now?
Yeah.
7 months. So that's great. But
Yeah,
I know
I'm spending more time with the jackrabbits and the coyotes out here than I am other people. So.
To that point, Scott.
Yeah.
Dogs. This is gonna in a diary of a dog's life. This is the most amazing like year and a half of all time for them.
Yeah.
Like my dog is gonna be devastated when I get to like go back on tour again and leave the house again. My dog is like, this is the greatest year and a half of my whole life. Like I can't even believe how much I get to see this person.
Yeah,
like she's so spoiled.
Yeah, I love that. Hey, let me go back a little bit to Everything I Wanted, because at least in my mind, a lot of things that we're going to talk about seem to have begun there. I could be right or wrong about that, but and I know that there's a significant backstory to this song, and a difficult backstory at that. But I want to get to that point where you came back to revisit it. And if I understand correctly, you found it on somebody's phone?
Yeah. Well, it's actually interesting that you asked that, because it's such a fun thing to think about, like how you made a song after, you know, it's been out for ages. It's like fun to relive it. But yeah, we wrote the first verse.
About it.
And that was it in September of 2018. Yeah. And that was it was only the verse. Then we got into an entire family argument, and then we didn't get back to it until April of 2019, and then that's when we wrote, I think, like the bridge. It was like very random. We
wrote it all out of order. The production was pretty much there when we first made it.
We wrote the beginning with the production.
The beat and the piano.
What was nice, or what was interesting, is like it's so funny thinking back on this, because we just go through our voice memos all the time just to see if we like find any, you know, random things we recorded we don't remember. And I kept finding this one. I was like, what the hell is this? And we do you remember we'd always like play it and be like, I had a dream, and every time we'd hear it, we'd just go like, oh my god, we have to make that song.
We sang like with a guitar, like in a green room, to Justin, the head of Darkroom, Billy's label. Yeah. And he was like, that line is amazing. Yeah. And we were like, that's only a lot. Like we don't like. He was like, I can't wait to hear that song. And we were like, we have to write. He would
be like, guys, you got to work on. I had a dream. He'd say it like once a week, and we'd be like, okay. But it was
encouraging.
We were always talking about, we have to finish that song, Nightmare, or whatever it's called, and we eventually did. But it was interesting, because we did write it in a period of time when I was, you know, not mentally very stable, and we finished it in a period of time when I was, and it was like interesting to write from both perspectives.
It's true.
And like you just remember how everything felt and be more conscious of change and like current, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, well, one of the things, I mean, it went from something that was very dark to a song about stability and friendship. I'm wondering for you, Billy, whether you happen to see that as a kind of a marker for you as a songwriter.
Good one. Sure it is. I mean, it's I feel like we're always, and you know, Finneas has been writing for longer than I have and is better and older, but
I am older. I won't fight the older thing, but I'll fight everything else.
I have been noticing, and especially then, like there's just like constantly new things that I feel like are are almost like breakthroughs of me and songwriting, because for a long time I really was really insecure with the way that I wrote, and I just didn't feel very good at it. And Finneas has always been really good at it. We've talked about this a ton, which is like growing up with him made me feel like I couldn't write it at all. Not because he made me feel that way, because he was just so good that I naturally felt that way, which I've talked about loads of times. But yeah, over time and definitely then there's just like new things that I come across that like open a new door to like songwriting for me. And that was definitely one of them. Writing from a perspective of a completely different mind state of mind from different points of your life is really, it's hard, and it's like interesting, and you learn a lot about yourself. So
I would also say, just as like an observer to Billie as an artist and as a creative, not to like spoil anything, but in working on the next body of work that we've been working on every day, like Billie's self-confidence in her writing has grown so exponentially just from everything I wanted onward. Like My Future, which was the most recent song we put out and the first song other than the James Bond song after Everything I Wanted, like a night and day sort of approach from Billie in terms of her confidence in her own writing. Like the amount that she brought to the table on day one of My Future was like Billie kind of like a lot of the time we'll come into a room and we'll both have nothing and something will get made. And in that case, Billie came into the room like, look at all this stuff I have. She had like the chords mapped out. She had the hook idea. She had the first line. And you're just like, wow.
Well, I remember we were all like in the living room and I was just playing piano and Finneas was talking to like your Claudia or something.
Dad or probably,
And I just was like, I'm in love with my future. And you were like, Billie. What is that? My favorite thing is when Finneas goes, what is that? Because then you go like,
well, because
I
not
wrote it.
Not to like throw Billie under the bus, but sometimes I'm like, did you write that? And she's like, no, it's Leslie Gore or something. And I'm like, oh, fine. But when it's a Billie composition, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
But you guys are doing my work for me, and because the next thing I wanted to talk about was My Future, and my perspective on that is, it seems like there is, and don't take this the wrong way, there is purity in the songwriting
for sure
that had not been existing previously with you. And I'm wondering kind of where that came from. Did it just happen, or had you been working on
this? Is something that this has been so interesting to watch, because and with My Future, but also like
the new
the
stuff.
Entire catalog of new stuff that we've been working on, there's an insane shift in just like mature, like growth, and it's not on purpose. It's just like
being a little older and like living
growing
through your
up
life.
A little. Like it's really been interesting, because I listen back to even when we all fall asleep, I listen back and I'm like, my voice sounds so different then. And it's like you forget that for our first EP that we made, when Don't Smile at Me, I was 14 when we made most of it, and then 15 when it came, so I was recording those songs at 14. That's a 14-year-old's voice. That's a different voice than at my age now. And obviously I'm still young, so it's going to change even more. But it's been really, really interesting. And the way that I write is different. The way that you like, it's just growing in this way that feels so organic and real. And I was thinking about how, there's been so many times when people are like, she has such a, like, for certain songs back in the day, they'd be like, her voice is so like soft and it's like a baby voice. I'm like, yeah, because I was a baby. Like now I'm not. Like I'm really curious to see the reaction to some of the newer stuff. It's not like completely different person. It's just grown up. It's
like you look back at the other projects, maybe not as much When We All Fall Asleep, because we worked on that for so long that it's a little bit less obvious, but it is like looking at like baby photos. It's like you look at it and you're like, oh, what a cute little kid, like,
dude.
And I don't think you're like looking at it negatively. You're not like, oh my god,
No,
what an ugly child. You're just like, wow, I was so young.
It's so interesting to just like you don't think about your voice changing, because when you're any age you have the voice that you have, and you're like, this is my voice. You're not thinking it's going to be different in a few years. I mean,
as Billie's
really interesting,
like collaborator, like, it was, especially when she was very young. Now, even at 18, which is young in terms of your life, you're at least like a legal adult. When we started writing, she was 14.
13,
14. I had such an awareness of, because I was 18 at the time, I had such an awareness of like how much I didn't identify as an 18-year-old with myself at 14. And so I had such a desire to like try to make some stuff that she wouldn't be mortified by in the 5 years later.
We mostly accomplished that.
Like 75%. There's 25% of the stuff that we're like, no. But some stuff we're like, we feel good about it.
Just like there are baby photos you go back to, and it's like,
absolutely.
Oh man, that's.
What was that haircut?
Why am I looking?
Who put me in those parachute pants?
Yeah. Here's the other thing about my future: the lyrical content. It seems that the song is speaking to a sense of being more self-reliant.
Yeah, definitely.
And tell me about kind of coming to that for yourself, Billie.
Well, to be honest with you, I realized this pretty recently that the initial idea that I had for the general idea of the song was, and this was subconscious. I didn't even realize this till after we wrote the song. But I found this video, it was like one of my Snapchat memories was like 4 years ago today. And it was this video of me in my room at, I guess, 14. And I was listening to Just Haven't Met You Yet by Michael Bublé. And I used to listen to that when I was younger and just filled with excitement and joy about like what is to come. And I loved the idea about, the people I haven't met, the person I haven't fallen in love with yet. And I watched that video and I was like, it's kind of touching and sad at the same time, watching your younger self like listen to that song, also because I hadn't met a lot of the people that I've met now or that have been a really rough part of my life. So it's really interesting to like watch yourself be like, just, I don't know. And I sent it to my friend and she was like, and I was like, wow, this is so ridiculous because I did meet some of those people and it didn't turn out so great. And then she was like, no, I don't see it that way. When I watch that video, I go, like, it feels like you're excited to meet your future self. Like, just haven't met you yet. I love the idea of watching like 14-year-old Billie just fill with like joy and excitement about her future self. I just haven't met you yet. And then that was completely subconsciously in my brain for like months. And I wrote that chorus and I was just like, this is exactly what I'm feeling. And, the rest of the song that's like clearly spoken to another person is also just so real and needed to be said. And I don't know. We were really, really, that was very satisfying.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, go for it, Scott.
The other thing that I read was it came together very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 days and done.
Yeah.
The writing was much faster than the recording process. We wrote it.
We wrote it in, I think, 2 days.
And then probably recorded over the course of like a week and a half.
Yeah. But what was interesting was, we wrote it for like 2 days, fully written. We recorded it, everything. But there was this one day, I think we've talked about this. There was like one day before, that second half production was in, and it was still just piano and my voice. And we were just sitting in here like,
where does it go?
Where does this go? Where can we take this? And I was gonna go home. I literally was like, well, I guess that's it. I guess we have nothing for today.
We were halfway through the day. We'd already done like a bunch of harmonies or something.
We'd done what we thought was like, okay, well, this is enough for one day. And in our standards, which is like one whatever. But took a dip in the pool. A trip to the spa. No, I'm just it's High School Musical. But yeah, we just like hung out outside. My mom came over. We just you know, just had a regular, didn't think about music, whatever. And we came back in here. I don't even know why, but I was going to leave. It was like we were gonna be done, and Finneas just started doing these he just
like
did
Nile
this
Rodgers
like
guitar, like this little like ching, chicka, chicka, ching, chicka, ching.
and we were just like, and we just kept going, and it just immediately was just like, there it is, here it is, like came to us. I don't know. It was very satisfying, and
It was really fun.
and yeah.
Yeah, no, it was like one of those cases where I think I've fallen more and more and more in love over the years of like how production can revitalize a song halfway through. Like, I think partially because of my own tendency to like listen to a song up until the payoff and then be like, cool, I got my nutrients out of that song. Like, I don't need to hear the chorus a third time. But it's like if each chorus that is like essentially the same lyrics and melody, if each chorus is offering me as a listener something super different,
Yeah.
I'm so much more likely to stick it out and listen to the whole song. I wish that weren't like a tendency of mine. Like, I also love putting on a you know, Rosemary Clooney vinyl and listening to the whole thing, but there's a tendency in the car to put on WAP and listen to like half of it and then be like, that's enough WAP for me today.
Yeah, but it fills you.
Yeah, the tank is full.
Yeah.
I have to pee. I'll be right back.
Yeah,
He
well,
has to. He has
I'm sorry,
to
I have to
pee.
pee. I'll be right back. It'll be so
all right, well,
short.
we'll stick with Billy. Billy, I have to ask you about, you're doing this really cool thing with Spotify, this letter to your future self.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, that was the cutest little idea they had. Yeah, I don't know. That as soon as I heard that idea, I was like, ooh, that's cute. I just think that's such a, you know, we need that. I mean, I'm such a sucker for a letter to yourself. I don't know. I've always, you know, written down a bunch of stuff. I've throughout the last few years, every like couple months, I'll just like take a video of myself, and it's like 10 minutes long, and I just am telling myself all these things that are happening in my life, the way I feel, the things going on around me, just random, like not even important things. And I always say, you know, at the end, I'm just like, all right, Billy, I'll see you soon. And it's a fun thing that I've always done. And I think that I just think we're who we all need. You know, we're the people that are gonna get us into a better place, push us into a worse place. Like, it's just, we're our own worst enemy, and we're also our, you know, like, best friend. So I think it's really important that we all have relationships with ourselves and excitement for the future and our future selves. And yeah, I thought that idea was just like so cute.
Well, especially now when, you know,
Yeah.
rightly or wrongly, optimism is in you know,
Short
scarce.
supply.
Yeah.
So doing that, you know, for your audience is remarkable. Do you have any sense of kind of what the pickup has been on this and how people are participating?
I don't really. I know that they've been writing lots of notes, but I kind of stopped looking.
Yeah.
Because I got a little too much for me. But I don't know. I've heard from a couple people that it's just been like fun and sweet and made them feel good, and hopefully it feels good in a few years. And I just love the idea that it'll send you the note in a few years. Like, you pick the date and it goes, okay, well, see you in a couple years. And then when that date comes, you get a little email from yourself.
Yeah, see that. It's super cool. So Finneas, I you know, I don't want to leave you out of this discussion. You just released, or recently, What Does About Us? Again, you know, there's something both about my future and what they'll say about us in terms of, you know, optimism in the face of everything we're facing these days. Tell me about the song and why you put it out now.
Well, I think the bridge between the two songs is probably that they were both written during this period of time, so they both have a kind of an awareness of it, which I felt as a songwriter. I don't know if Billy agrees or disagrees, but like there were some songs I have great affection for that I was working on before quarantine that now have like so much less resonance.
Don't make sense.
And I feel like I like this song a lot, but it may not make sense until a year and a half from now again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sort of started over. I just started writing new songs, which is kind of what we did too. And I wrote What They'll Say About Us in June. I'd been going to protests that week with my girlfriend and with Billie. And that had been a super galvanizing, like optimistic experience. Like when you go to a protest and you're like, oh my God, there's so many people that feel the same way I do. And
it's uplifting.
It's uplifting, and you feel like you're part of a good cause. And then I was coming home every day and like following this woman, Amanda Klutz, whose husband, Nick Cordero, was in the hospital. He was in the ICU for, I think, 95 days. And he just like quite a journey with COVID. He was, put in a medically induced coma so that he could be on a ventilator. He was on the ventilator for like 90 days. He was taken off. He was woken up from his sedation, but didn't come out of a coma for like a month. He had to have his leg amputated because of blood clotting. And I think it was the juxtaposition of like thinking about like the whole world kind of having like a revolution outside. And if you were the person whose loved one was sitting there in a hospital bed dying, that like what that would feel like to you, where you're like, there's like all this hope in the air and you still are dealing with this like tragedy. So it was those two ingredients that led to that song, kind of in duality. And that was the impetus for it, was this kind of like, there really is an opportunity during this to make the world better than it was when we got into this mess.
Well, also it's kind of impossible to hear about that situation and not think about Amanda's point of view and her, like, just what she's going through. And they have a new baby and
yeah, they had a 1-year-old. And I wrote a lot of it in June, and then it kind of had no ending. And then Nick ended up passing away in July. And it was a song that I hadn't forgotten about it, but it didn't end where I wanted it to end. And I had a feeling of like, I don't know, maybe no one will ever hear this. And I think when he passed away, I had a feeling of like, I have to finish this song and it has to come out. But I felt really nervous putting it out because I just didn't want Amanda to hate it. I feel like normally we're not trying to cater to like one specific person in our songwriting, but it was a little bit like if you made a film about a person who was who was real, like you really care what they think. So and I also didn't want her to feel like I was using it as some opportunity for like publicity. So I ended up writing her a letter a couple weeks before it came out, or maybe like 10 days, that kind of expressed all those things of like, I don't even think you should feel like you need to listen to this song if that seems painful for you. I don't ever want you to feel like you have to post about it ever. You don't even have to reply to me, but I needed to let you know that I wrote this about you, because that's just the truth. So yeah, that's the story behind it, but it's been very gratifying to see people. It's only been out right now talking to you, so I've been out for 2 days. But to see people kind of juxtapose themselves into the song and talk about their own situation. So many people have grandparents who've died from coronavirus, or friends, parents who've died. It's just wildly heartbreaking. So it's been a wonderful experience to see people embrace the song.
One of the things that I'm interested in about you and the way you work, obviously, and believe it or not, I'm talking to half of the people you've produced lately. Yesterday was Selena Gomez. In a couple weeks, it's Ash. A month ago, it was JP Sachs. But oftentimes, and I don't have to tell you this, the producer is the objective voice in the room. And has to provide feedback, good, bad, or otherwise.
Yeah.
How do you do that for yourself, and is it harder?
I think it's way harder. I think one of the immense privileges that I have been given as a producer is I work with a bunch of artists that I already think are great. I'm not. I've never been particularly interested in like being a mean producer. We all hear like famous stories like that that sort of era of rock and roll producers that were like throwing stuff at band members, and like that's just not. I want to create a really loving environment that's just about how good we can make a song. The harshest I'll ever be is I care a lot about vocals, so I'll make a person get a great vocal. That's about it. But you know, I don't ever do it in a mean way. I just won't let them finish until it's done. But you know, yeah, as a solo artist, it's super hard because you have to go like, is this good? Would I listen to this? You know, if if weren't me, does it have value? It's way harder to be objective, I think, if it's your own thing. It's like having a kid, right? You don't know if the kid is like nice or charismatic or funny or pretty. Like you're like, I love them regardless. They could be the worst.
Hey Billy, how much does he push you?
I'm pushing.
Like doing vocals.
I'm the one pushing myself in that situation.
That's totally true. And with Billy, it's different.
It's definitely a completely different world with us than I think
with anyone
else.
Yeah.
So
Billy is like a never-ending. Like, just she'll do 50 takes of like one line, and we'll choose the best syllables from each line and comp that together. And then the next day she'll come over again and she'll be like, I want to redo the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's intense, but it's because she knows her voice.
It's rough.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Bond song.
Please.
You know, this is, I know you guys kind of went through the list of the artists that have done Bond title songs. So tell me how you got invited.
Oh my God. Honestly, I don't even, since I can even remember, have been like,
wouldn't it be sick
if we could make a Bond song? And not like in a like, we're gonna make a Bond song way, just like
fantasy. How
cool would that actually be? Like, and I remember for no reason, just for fun, we would, there must be like multiple tracks that we have somewhere in Logic that are just called like
Billy
Bond idea, like before any of this was talked about. And we like wrote certain, like,
it's because there's like a cadence, there's a chord structure that feels very
Bondy,
Bond-esque, so to speak. And I think when you hear that cadence, your brain just tells it to you. You're just like, sorry, Billy hasn't slept in days. She's really tired. But there's this real like feeling of like, oh, that's a Bond idea. And
so true.
I think it's always been on our list of dreams. So when we found out there was another one being made, and you know, we just kind of we sort of told our team that we'd be thrilled to put in the work of meeting anybody.
Well, and before we bring someone very special in, no, I mean, it's obviously it's an iconic franchise. The other title songs are well known. How on earth do you approach it to make it yours?
Such a good question. I think as a producer, I wasn't super interested in trying to do something that wasn't Billy. I think to me it was like, what's the Billy take on a James Bond song? I wasn't trying to make her yell.
I would also say, like, I think we've grown so much in our own, like, we've learned so much more about ourselves and like what we are as a whole. And I would say that I'm so much more aware of like what actually feels disingenuous versus what actually feels authentic. And it's really interesting because, you know, at the beginning, obviously this is how life works with growing up, with making art, with anything. When you start off, you're gonna be a little bit, what's the word? You're gonna copy certain things because derivative, not copy, but like, because
inspired
you can't be anything if you don't know anything. So it's the way you grow up. When you're 12, you start hanging out with people and you go like, oh, I really like this person, and you start acting like them, and then you kind of, it's like you try out different ways of yourself until you really find yourself. And that's why, like, being derivative, as long as it's not literally carbon copying. I kind of look up to it. I think it's really important that we don't, shit on people for doing something a little bit similar at the beginning, because you have to. It's how you grow. It's how you learn what's not real. And I think that sometimes we even start making something and I'm just like, this feels not authentic to me. And we just change it a little and we figure out a way to make it feel authentic. And I think we're very, I think, way more aware of what we actually are better at and do. And I think that really came out in this song.
I think in terms of like this, that is like, people always, I feel like, you make music and have for your whole life too. People always want to know like what comes first, like the lyrics for you or the music. Everybody asks that, and I always say that it's always different. But in the case of the Bond song, it was like 100% melody first, because I was like, we could say the coolest thing in the world, and if it isn't like a Bond melody that you just like need, I was like, it's not going to be effective. So it was all like, I rarely do this, but that song I sat at a piano to come up with all of the melodies. It was all like great melody lines played as keys, and then maybe like modulating the melody a little bit depending on if Billie was like, there should be an extra syllable in that line. But it was all very like melody first, and then it was kind of like, okay, that's the chorus melody. What can we say that includes the hook of the song and just feels great to sing out that way? So it was such a great like maze challenge.
It was a good writing
exercise.
Well, let me bring in someone who knows a thing or two about film music. A multiple Academy Award winner, multiple Grammy Award winner, one of the most lauded film composers of our time, Hans Zimmer.
Hello there.
Hans.
Hi, Hans.
Hey.
We miss you.
So nice. Well, I miss you too. This lockdown situation is really very antisocial.
I was hoping that I would get to see you all the time this year. That was my fantasy.
I know. We had plans, and all plans were good in many ways. But
so Hans, let me ask you.
Go on.
If I understand the process correctly, usually the composer is hired, and then, speaking of the Bond franchise, the composer's hired, and then the artist and the title song is figured out after that. And it seems like, if I understand this correctly, the process was a little flipped.
Well, everything was a little flipped. First of all, I thought I never would do a Bond movie, even though I was very good friends with Barbara Broccoli. But we were just always chatting. And my friend Leah Wallach said to me, there's a little song lying around. Make sure it doesn't get lost. And because, like everybody who could write a song was sending a song. And I just listened to Billie and Finneas, and I just went, I became very obnoxious and very German and went, this is it. You don't understand. If you don't understand that this is it, there's only one flaw with it. They haven't seen the movie. Get them on a plane now. And I think that was my involvement. That was my involvement.
What for you as a composer, what does a Bond title song have to have? Are there essential elements?
I think this one was particular insofar that it had to have simplicity and heart and be really elegant. And I thought that's what this one was. The other thing that I thought was fantastic about it was that it was so stripped down, that it was, you can't compete with Dame Shirley Bassey, so don't even try. I think we all love the Paul McCartney Live and Let Die.
Oh, good.
We love all that, but that's not what they do, and that's not what I do. So I think ultimately what made it special is by keeping it authentic, by by fighting for its authenticity, which it sounds like I had much of a fight on my hands. I had no fight on my hands. I had everybody just going, yes, they're great. That's it. Let's do it. Let's buy them the plane ticket.
Yeah. So ticket, Billie, Phineas. I know you went to London. You had the opportunity to collaborate with Hans and the orchestra. And I'm not aware. Have you guys worked with an orchestra previously?
No.
Not this way.
I'd grown up on the films that Hans had scored, and to me it was like part of the reason we didn't even attempt to do any string arrangement on the Bond song prior to Hans was I was like, the string arrangement for this has to be amazing, and I would just be lying if I said I had all this experience with strings. I just don't. So, or orchestral, like strings is putting it too simply. But to me, like, oh my God, it was such a thrill to get to just hang out with Hans and then to work on this song. And the strings were recorded, or the orchestra was recorded at Air Studios in London, and like, there's footage of that day, and Billie and I are just grinning like the whole day.
Yeah.
But
they were happy.
Fun.
Yeah. Well. Also, Billie, obviously, doing that kind of recording for a major motion picture, there are a lot of cooks in that kitchen, so to speak. How much input did you have in the process?
I don't even remember.
Can I answer that?
Go for it.
No, it's simple. There was like a point where I'd gone way over the top with something, and you just turned around and you just said, "I don't like it," and I thought that was the clearest, most honest, and perfect thing to say. I don't like it, because how can you argue with that? And you have to think, and you're not doing as well as you could be doing. So thank you. And I think that's how the sessions were running. That there wasn't anybody there who it never felt. To me, it never felt corporate. Right? It always
no, but that was because I think the reason it never felt corporate was because of how great you were so kind to us, and like so much more generous than I thought we necessarily deserved from you.
Definitely that.
And well, I think mainly because we're noobs, and you've won many Academy Awards. But you were so kind, and then your partner Stephen Lipson, who also worked with us, was really kind too.
Well, Stephen's recorded a few outstanding lead vocals in his past. I mean, he has, Grace Jones and Annie Lennox and you name it, and all the whatever. But the other part, which I thought was really important, is the Johnny Marr part.
Johnny Marr was awesome.
I asked you about the guitar sound. So tell me why that was important.
Well, it was really simple. Barbara asked me if I would come on board, and I wasn't sure, out of all sorts of reasons. So I phoned Johnny and I said, I have two questions for you. There is like one guitar part in the world that's worth playing, and it's not yours. And the other question is, do you think I should do the Bond movie? And he goes, yes to both of those questions. Right? So he says, if I can have the job to play that, yes, you can do the movie. So that was a really good beginning. So I had that to start off with, because it really is true that, and the way Johnny plays, it's like you have to be naturally born cool, right? And that might not necessarily be a kid from an old man from Frankfurt. But he can do that. He can pull that off. And then it was great getting Phineas and Billie and Johnny together.
He was so nice.
But something happened, which I don't know. There's a sense of communication that appeared in the song that didn't take away or didn't usurp what Billie and Phineas was doing, but felt like the same. Felt of the of the same sort of style, and aesthetic as they were
Oh,
looking.
absolutely.
Well,
I think
go ahead, Finn.
I was just going to say that, I think Billy and I make all this music under usual circumstances, just like alone in our room. And I thought for the Bond song, if someone had told me, you should lay some guitar down, I would be trying to mimic Johnny Marr. And if someone said you should work out an orchestral arrangement, I'd be trying to mimic Hans' orchestrations. And I think like the fact that we were just so privileged, and Johnny played the guitar on this song and Hans did the orchestral arrangement. It was just such a blessing. And it's like, to me, when I put that song on in the car, I can't. It feels very surreal that I was involved in any way, because it's just so cool that these people that we've looked up to for so long are involved.
But don't you feel? I mean, this is how I feel. It was just a really great moment in history. It was a great moment. You got to write a Bond song. We all got to get together. We got to do it. We had all the right ingredients. We had all the right point of view, and in a peculiar way, it felt really naturally.
It was so fun
to go and do. This was the song that had to be done for this film.
And it was all of our first time doing a Bond song. That was really exciting. I'm so glad it was your first and Johnny's first and our first. That was really fun.
Well, let's put the button on the Bond discussion. Hans, I'm gonna kind of give you the last word. Obviously, you've worked with all manner of artists, musicians, directors, name it. What makes Billie and Finneas good collaborators?
That they're very good. It's as simple as that. If you work with people who are really good and who are willing to just go in the gentlest of way, no, it might be a better idea if we tried this. And it usually, I hate being the smartest guy in the room. I love having them in the room because they're the smartest guys in the room. Simple as that. And they're delights to be around. I mean, what this conversation started from, that place of, yes, we want to hang, we want to do things. You haven't heard the end, the Last of Us. Let me put it that way.
Well,
I hope so.
We look forward to that for sure. Billie, Finneas, I only have one more question for you.
Okay.
And it's, it's been about 6 months or so, maybe a little bit longer, since that remarkable evening at the Grammy Awards. And, I'm wondering now, with a little time and perspective, what that recognition meant to the both of you.
It was kind of embarrassing. I was very embarrassed. It was I mean, like, that was probably like one of the best nights of my life, and I sobbed and sobbed tears of joy. We all did afterwards, and we couldn't believe it, and I still can't believe it. But to be honest with you, it's very weird to be sitting in a room. Listen, I love the Grammys so much, but to be sitting in a room full of your idols and have them all low-key resent you was very upsetting for me. And to then have those people's entire fandoms that I've been a part of for years hate me. That was super weird. Still super weird. But it's the kind of thing you don't, I don't know who can feel like they deserve.
Being nominated for a Grammy is the coolest.
It's so cool. I could have lost every single one. I would have been so happy because I was nominated. It's really being
nominated. You're in a peer group with all your contemporaries or your superiors, depending on how you feel about them, and you just feel like you can't believe you're in this club. And then when you win, you're like, but I don't feel better than any of these people, even though they didn't win this award and I did. So it's
it's a
Very
little
challenging.
it's conflicting, because then you're just, it was weird. It was pretty weird, but it was amazing, and I'm so grateful, and I was so happy, and that's, I don't know, it was really amazing.
Well,
Once in a lifetime.
we love listening to all the new music. I know there's a new album in the works. Can't wait to hear that. We'll do another program all about that. Hans Zimmer, Finneas, Billie Eilish, thank you all so much for taking the time today.
Thank you for having.
Thank you.
You're such a great interviewer. Thanks for having us, and we miss you a lot, Hans, as well.
We miss you, Hans.
I really miss you. Guaranteed virus free.
We'll go surfing with you.
All right. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
I had a dream. I got everything I wanted. Not what you think. And if I'm being honest, it might have been a nightmare to anyone like it. Thought I could fly, so I stepped off the golden. Nobody cried. Nobody even noticed. I saw them standing right there. I kinda thought they might kiss. I had a dream. I got everything I wanted, but when I wake up I see you with me, and you say, as long as I'm here, no one can hurt you. Don't wanna lie here, but you can learn to. If I could change the way that you see yourself, you wouldn't wonder why you're here. They don't deserve you. I tried to scream, but my head was underwater. They call me weak, like I'm not just somebody's daughter. It could have been a nightmare to anyone my kid. Man, it feels like yesterday was a year ago. But I don't wanna let anybody know. Everybody wants something from me now, and I don't wanna let them down. I had a dream. I got everything I wanted, but when I wake up I see you with me, and you say, as long as I'm here, no one can hurt you. Don't wanna lie here, but you can learn to. If I could change the way that you see yourself, you wouldn't wonder why you're here. They don't deserve you. If I knew it all, then would I do it again? Would I do it again? If they knew what they said would go straight to my head, what would they say instead? If I knew it all, then would I do it again? Would I do it again? If they knew what they said would go straight to my head, what would they say instead? I had a dream. I got everything I wanted, but when I wake up I see